ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां
सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
गुरुपरम्पराम्
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ
ॐ
सहनाववतु
सहना
सहनाववतु
भवतु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सहनौ
सहनौ
सह
भुनक्तु
वीर्यं
भुनक्तु
सह
सह
करवावहै
वीर्यं
वीर्यं
करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
विद्विषावहै।
ॐ
विद्विषावहै
शान्ति
ॐ
शान्ति
शान्ति शान्ति
शान्तिः
शान्तिः।
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
ॐ तत्सत् ॐ नमः शिवाय।
Okay, so Arvindji, could you start with Anuvaka number 12?
Raviji, that is from Ye Tatra Brahmana Sammarshinaha.
No. Anuvaka number 12 is Om Shanno Mitra
Right, the
Shanvarunaha Shanti
Shanti
Mantra.
Mantra.
Yeah.
Right. Om Shanno Mitra Shanvarunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadisham ऋतमवादिशं सत्यमवादिशं तन्मामावीत तद्वक्तारमावीत आवीन्माम् आवीद्वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Okay, so as you remember, this is the Shanti Patha of the beginning of this chapter of Shiksha Valli. It is now being repeated here as a thanksgiving. In the beginning, it was a prayer. Now it is a thanksgiving because the prayer has been answered. And therefore, there are some slight changes. So up to Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi, you will find that the Anuvaka number 1 and Anuvaka number 12 is identical, right? But here in Anuvaka 12, now there is a change from this Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmavadisham. From this mantra on, this part of the mantra onwards, there is a change. It is a prayer expressing gratitude for having answered the prayer. Because what? The obstacles have been removed. What was the Anuvaka number 1 prayer for? A removal of obstacles to Shravanam. And therefore, those obstacles you have removed of Ishvara. And because I have successfully completed Shiksha Valli, therefore I am offering you thanksgiving prayer. And therefore the word is avadisham. Avadisham is I have said. It is the past tense. I have said, it means. Okay. So while in the beginning, in Anuvaka number 1, if you go back and see, we used vadishyami. Vadishyami means I will say, or I am saying. I will say, it was said. I will say what? That you are Pratyaksham Brahma. And now, because I have completed it, I have understood, and therefore I say, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Avadisham. I have said that you are Pratyaksham Brahma, Ritamavadisham. I have said that you are Ritam. This is all previous past tense. Satyamavadisham. I have said that you are Satyam. Tanmam Avit. Earlier it was Avatu. May you protect me. Avit is saying the past tense again. You have given me your blessings. You have removed the obstacles. Tadvaktaram Avit. Again in the beginning it was Tadvaktaram Avatu. Here is saying Tadvaktaram Avit. Past tense. You have protected my teacher also. Avin Mam. Mam Avit. You have protected me also. Avit Bhaktaram, you have protected the teacher also. And again, Om Shanti is repeated 3 times. Now why 3 times? Because Shravanam is over, but Mananam and Nididhyasanam remains. And therefore, each of the activities of Mananam and Nididhyasanam, the 3 obstacles are there. And therefore, for Jnananishtha, I need the blessings of Ishvara to successfully complete Mananam and successfully complete Nididhyasanam also. And therefore, I say Om Shanti Shanti. Please remove obstacles. So with this, Shiksha Valli has been completed. The first chapter, first Adhyaya is over. And now we have to move into the second Adhyaya. So before that, I'll just open up any questions on the first Adhyaya. Okay, so now we have to look at the second Adhyaya, the second Valli as it is called. And it is called Brahmananda Valli, or also called Brahma Valli, or sometimes called Ananda Valli. Three names are there. So this chapter deals, this is the most important chapter of this Upanishad, of Taittiriya Upanishad. And this deals with the Jnanam part. The first chapter, Shiksha Valli, and the third chapter, they basically deal with obtaining sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. But the second chapter alone deals with Jnanam. And so it is known as Brahma Valli also. Why? Because the chapter begins with the word Brahma. It is known as Ananda Valli also because in this chapter there is an analysis of the nature of Ananda. So this is a very important chapter from this point of view. There is a very profound analysis of what is the Ananda Swarupam, what is happiness, and what is the means of getting this Ananda. This is the analysis, and it is called Ananda Mimamsa. And when you combine these two names, Brahma Valli and Ananda Valli, there is the third name, Brahmananda Valli. Okay. So you can use any of these. Normally, we use Brahmananda Valli or Brahma Valli. Now, unlike the other Upanishads, where there was only one Shanti mantra at the beginning, here we saw two Shanti mantras. The second one slightly different from the first in the Shiksha Valli itself. And the second Valli itself, the second chapter itself has different Shanti Patha, right? Now, in this Shiksha Valli, if you remember, if you look back at your notes, you will find that the Shanti Patha was counted as one Valli, first Anuvaka, not Valli, first Anuvaka. The first Anuvaka of Shiksha Valli was a Shanti Patha, while here in Brahmananda Valli, Shanti Patha is just presented as a Shanti Patha and not counted as a Anuvaka. So there are very many variations. In some texts you will find that Brahmananda Valli has two Shanti Pathas. The first one of the last one of the Shiksha Valli is repeated, and then the Shanti Patha of this Brahmananda Valli, which is Sahana Bhavatu, is given. There is another version where the closing Shanti Patha of Shiksha Valli is taken, and some other texts take the closing Shanti Patha of Shiksha Valli as the first Shanti Patha of the second Valli. Okay, but this is the version which appears in Gita Press publications, and so we are going by that. So we will look at the Shanti Patha. So Arvindji, can you please chant the Shanti Patha?
Sahana Bhavatu.
Sahana Bhavatu.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So we have seen this Shanti Patha in another Upanishad. Which Upanishad? This is not the first time we are seeing the Shanti Patha. Sahana Bhavatu. Of course, we are chanting it every day. That every class, that's a different matter. But it belongs.
Mundaka Upanishad.
No.
Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad. And when we did Kathopanishad, we discussed in great detail the meaning with Shankara's commentary. Okay. So normally where Shankara comments upon one particular aspect in one Upanishad, he doesn't comment again if that same text appears in another Upanishad. Still, in this case, the second time also he makes a commentary. in this particular text in Taittiriya Upanishad. Again, Shankara comments on this particular Shantipatha. Therefore, this is one of those rare Shantipathas where there are two Shankara Bhashyams available. Of course, they are very similar to each other, but still, the fact remains that for this, normally for any Shantipatha, only one Bhashyam is available. But for Sahana Bhavatu, there are two Bhashyams available. One in Katha Upanishad and one in Taittiriya Upanishad. So, Sahana Bhavatu. So, now basically means both of us here. Both of us are who? Shishya and Acharya. So, may he protect both Shishya and Acharya together. Saha. Together he should protect. He should protect us. And in Katha Upanishad, Shankara explained that this protection was by way of getting jnanam. And here he says, Sahano Bhunaktu, he translates Bhunaktu as Bhojayatu, means may he help us enjoy the benefit. Bhojyam is to eat or to consume. So may he may he help us to enjoy the jnana phalam here. That's what it means. And of course, there is another meaning of Bhojayatu, which Shankara gives. Bhojayatu also means Palayatu. Palayatu means protection, by giving the benefit of that knowledge, which is what we saw in Katha Upanishad. So now here, with this particular Shantipatha, why we repeat it again and again in every class is because it seeks blessings for both the Jnanam and for the Jnana Phalam also. We are asking the Lord to help us gain the Jnanam and also ask the Lord to help us gain the phalam of that Jnanam. Right? Why do we say we want a prayer for Jnana Phalam? Because if you simply ask for Jnanam, remember that Jnanam may be completely understood, but Jnanam may not give the phalam because of Viparita Bhavana or Samshayam. So Samshayam is addressed by Mananam and Viparita Bhavana is addressed by Nididhyasanam. Therefore, remember that we may have the complete information about what the text is saying, but that information may not result in transformation. And that is why we ask for both the blessings for getting us the jnanam and the blessings for getting us the phalam also. And he says Sahaviryam. So Sahaviryam, Shankara defines as Samarthyam, necessary skills. Necessary skills and aptitude should be there. And Karava Vahi, let us both, the teacher as well as the student, put forward the necessary effort. The teacher should come to class prepared and teach to the best of his ability, and the student should come to class completely open and should be focused in class. These two skills are required. What is the purpose? For gaining jnanam. The teacher needs the communication skills in order to be able to communicate properly, and the student requires the skills for understanding the communication. And then he says, Tejas Vinav Adhitam Astu. Both of us are smart. Both of us are brilliant. So Adhitam is defined here as Su Adhitam. So Adhitam means let this Brahma Vidya be learnt well. Adhitam is to learn. So Adhitam is to learn well. So Su Adhitam Astu. Let this Brahma Vidya be available to me and let me learn it well. And learn it well so that I get it in assimilated format, which we call Jnana Nishtha. In short, the prayer says, Oh Lord, let me have the capacity to understand what the Acharya is saying. Let the words of the Acharya, which are actually nothing but the words of the Shastram, let those Shastrik Vakyam be converted to wisdom in my mind, in my intellect. And because of this, for the purpose of acquisition of this knowledge from the Acharya, Ma Vidvishavahai. Shishya may misunderstand what the teacher says. The teacher may say something and the Shishya may misunderstand it or be hurt by it. He may think it is unfair on the part of the Guru, even if the Guru really didn't mean to be unfair. And because there is a lot of interaction between the student and the teacher, during the teaching process, there could be some sort of misunderstanding which would result in a strain or a dislike in the mind of the Shishya. And the moment the Shishya has reservations about the Acharya, this is a major obstacle to Shraddha. And once Shraddha, devotion is lost, once Shraddha in the teacher is lost, there can be obviously no more learning at all. And therefore, and this can be on other side also, not just that the student has misunderstood. The teacher also, the Acharya also can misunderstand something the Shishya has said. And therefore, for avoiding this problem, the Shanti Patha is chanted. Ma vidvishavahahi. Let us both not have any strain in our mutual relationship. The Guru should trust the student and have compassion for the student, and the Shishya should trust the teacher and his words. So let us both trust in each other. Let there be not any strain in our mutual relationship. This is the meaning of that particular Shanti mantra. And Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This Shanti is chanted 3 times for removal of those 3 obstacles, Adhyatmika, etc. We all know that. So we are not again going to talk about that. And for this, Shankara says the teaching is being given in the second Valli. And therefore, what is the wish of the student? That I should receive the Jnanam as it is taught by the Acharya without any obstacles. And what is the thinking process behind that prayer? Because only through that Atma Jnanam, moksha is possible. So Shankara says, Tanmulam hi param shreya iti. The very thinking of the student is driven by the faith in the Veda, that only through Atma Vidya, moksha is possible. That Atma Vidya is being conveyed to me by the teacher who will teach according to the Shastram. And therefore, let me gain the knowledge as the teacher is teaching, so that I get moksha. So this is our prayer, the Shanti Patha. Now we will move on to Anuvaka number 1. As you can see, it begins with Brahma. Brahma with Apnoti Paramam, which is why I said this Valli is called Brahma Valli. Arvindji, Anuvaka 1, totality, fully.
Yes. Om Brahmavida apnoti param tadeshabhyukta satyam jnanamanantam brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman so oshnute sarvan kamaantah brahmana vipaschiteti tasmadva एतस्मादात्मन आकाशः सम्भूतः आकाशाद्वायुः वायोरग्निः अग्नेरापः अद्भ्यः पृथिवी पृथिव्या ओषधयः ओषधीभ्योऽन्नम् अन्नात् पुरुषः स वा एष पुरुषोन्नरसमयः तस्येदमेव शिरः अयं दक्षिणः पक्षः अयमुत्तरः पक्षः अयमात्मा इदं पुच्छं प्रतिष्ठा तदप्येष श्लोको भवति.
Okay, so as we know, Upanishads have broadly 2 forms. One is the Mantra Upanishad and one is the Brahmana Upanishad. So Mundaka Upanishad we saw, it's a mantra format, right? This particular Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, you've already seen, there are no rhyming words, there's no meter, there's no chanda in the Anuvakas. So it's a Brahmana Upanishad, prose form. The entire thing is prose. And each section, as we saw, was called an Anuvaka. So this is the second Valli, Brahmananda Valli or Brahma Valli. And we have 9 Anuvakas here. The first was the Shanti Mantra, which is not Anuvaka. It's not counted as Anuvaka. So apart from Shanti Mantra, there are 9 paragraphs, 9 anuvakas. Now, why should we study this Valli? So, the reason for studying this particular chapter is in Shankara's words, Brahma Vidyayaha Avidya Nivrittihi. By gaining the knowledge of Brahman, removal of avidya will be the prayojanam, he says. The benefit will be the removal of avidya. And therefore, when you look at this study we are going to do, first what we will do, we will study the Bhramananda Valli with very elaborate study. This particular Anuvaka has an extremely elaborate bhashyam by Shankara, very, very beautiful bhashyam. And while we won't go word to word by the bhashyam, we'll take out the relevant extracts. So first thing is to study the Valli. What will that do? Study of the Valli will give you jnanam. What will jnanam do? What is the primary result of jnanam? Very simple question.
Moksha.
Shokam tarati.
Removal of ajnanam.
Removal of ajnanam. Very simple question. Jnanam comes, ajnanam goes. Ajnanam goes, samsara goes. Samsara going away is called moksha. Okay. So Shankara says that tatascha. By the removal of avidya, what will happen? Atyantika samsara abhavaha. Abhava means absence or removal. Samsara abhava means samsara will be removed. Atyantikaha. He uses the adjective atyantika to show that it is moksha. Because you can be free of samsara also for a temporary period, right? There are two terms which you use, atyantika samsara and apekshika samsara. So the abhava, the removal, is atyantika abhava and apekshika abhava. Apekshika means relative removal or temporary removal, and atyantika means permanent removal. So temporary removal of samsara is when? Through death. Physical body dies, temporarily samsara is removed until the next birth. Pralayam, physical body and the subtle body both resolve until the next srishti, samsara is removed. And one more is there on a daily basis. Sushupti avastha is there, the samsara is removed. So there are 3 types of temporary removal of samsara: Maranam, Sushupti and Pralaya. All this fall under apekshika samsara nivritti. Removal of samsara temporarily or in a relative way. And that is not the purpose of Bhramananda Valli. Bhramananda Valli wants us to understand that samsara will be removed permanently, that you will become Jivan Mukta, and therefore he says Atyantika Samsara Abhavaha. Now, if you look at the Anuvaka is actually divided into 3 portions. So the first part of the Anuvaka, the first part of the mantra, Brahmavit Apnoti Paramam. This is called a Sutra Vakyam. It's called a sutra, basically, an aphorism. What is a sutra? Sutra is a brief or a very condensed form of the teaching. The entire idea is being conveyed in that. The whole teaching has been condensed in that. And that is very simple. Brahmavit apnoti paramam. The one who knows Brahma, he obtains the supreme, which is Brahman. Okay. That is Sutra Vakyam. Then there is a second portion where this Sutra Vakyam is slightly elaborate. Not fully explained, slightly elaborated. So brief notes are given. And that portion is called a Vrittihi. And you can take that Vrittihi as a brief commentary on the Sutra Vakyam. Vrittihi also means thoughts, also means movements. But here, the Vrittihi has to be taken as a brief commentary. So it's accepted part of Shastram that you will have sutras, you will have Vrittis, and there will be a later third part, which is an elaborate commentary, elaborate bhashyam, that is called the Vyakhyana. So this portion This first Anuvaka is divided into these three portions: Sutra, Vritti, Vyakhyanam. Now let us look at the Sutra. Sutra is Brahmavid Apnoti Param. The knowledge of the knower of Brahman attains moksha, which is the highest Purushartha, Param, highest Purushartha, and otherwise we know of it, we call it Purnatvam. What does this mean? The Brahma Jnani, Brahmavit alone gets moksha. All others will remain as samsaris. Therefore, elaborate rituals, however elaborate the rituals are, however rich the rituals are, however long the rituals are, they will not give moksha, and therefore we say jnanat eva kaivalyam. So Brahmavid apanoti paramam. The word Brahma here has to be understood as Nirguna Brahman. Why? Because Saguna Brahman, why does Saguna Brahman not give moksha? Why can you say that Saguna Brahman does not give moksha?
Triangular format, Saguna Brahman. What we pray
Saguna
to will
Brahman is
be in
not seeking moksha, right?
Yeah. So
What is the reason? There is a more logical reason.
There is duality and it's impermanent. It's not permanent.
It is not permanent. That's one
Anand,
good reason. But you can also say that Saguna Brahman belongs to which? Vyavaharika or Paramarthika?
Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika.
Saguna Brahman belongs to Vyavaharika, right? And therefore, from Saguna Brahman, you can't expect moksha, which belongs to Paramarthika. So Brahma here means Nirgunam. Nirgunam Brahma. And Brahma is called Brahma because it is defined as Brihattamma. Brihattamma. Okay, Brihat, the third short, Tama is the second part. So Brihattam Tattvat Brahma. Because it is the biggest one, it is called Brahma. Brihattama, the suffix Tama represents the superlative. And Brihat means big in Sanskrit. So Brihattama means the biggest one, the infinite one. And therefore, it's called Brahma because it is the Uttama Brahat, the most superior big one. That is the etymology of the word Brahma. Okay, incidentally. Brahma is Brihattama. Brahat means big. Uttama or the Tama, Tama prefix indicates the superlative. And Brihattama means the superlative among big ones. Or that is Brahma, which is infinite. Okay, then, so that is the word Brahma. Brahmavit. Brahmavit is Brahma Vijaniti iti. Brahmavit. The one who knows the nature of Brahman is called Brahmavit. What happens to him? Apnoti paramam. Okay, the Shankara explains each of these words. All these explanations are coming from the Bhashyam. So, apnoti, Shankara says, Brahma Swarupasya Avidya Naptasya Saptataha. So, he's saying that he gets back. Apnoti means gets back that Brahma Swarupa. Why gets back? Because avidyaya, it was figuratively lost due to ajnanam. It was never lost because what is your nature cannot be lost, cannot go away, but you have lost sight of it because of ajnanam, and therefore the word apnoti cannot be understood as attains or becomes, but has to be understood as regains, as re-understood. Okay. Now, if you go back to Gita, in the 18th chapter, Arjuna uses one word which talks about the regainment of the knowledge. Do you remember? Where does it come? 18th chapter, literally towards the end. When Krishna says, have you understood, hey Arjuna, What does Arjuna say? What are the words he uses?
Moho khatam ho gaya. No.
Nashto moha is fine. Nashto moha simply means my delusion has been removed. But he uses a particular word. Gita teaches, what is that word? All of you are long-term students of Gita. Some of you have done Gita more than once or twice or three times. What is that word? It comes immediately after Nashto Mohaha. Arjuna Uvacha Nashto Moha
Smriti Labdva.
Smritihi Labdva. I have regained my memory. Right? So here, same thing. The Brahma Swarupa, which was figuratively lost due to Ajnanam, Shankara says, has been regained. How? With the help of the teaching of the Shruti delivered through the Guru. And therefore, that Brahman which I thought was something else, because when the Brahma Swarupa was lost, I thought the Brahman was something else. Now I see that the Brahman is my own self. So Brahmavid apnoti and Param. Param is defined by Shankara as Nir Atishayam. Atishayam means very, very big. Nir Atishayam means that which cannot be even conveyed by the word Atishayam, that which cannot be surpassed. Atishayam can take it as surpassing also. Therefore, Nir Atishayam, that which can never be surpassed, and therefore infinitely big. So that Brahma is Param. Tadeva Brahma Param, he says, that Brahma which is infinitely big, bigger than which nothing else exists, that Brahma is Param, defined by the word Param. And therefore he says, Brahma with Brahma Prapti, Brahma Vido Darshati, indicates that Brahma Prapti is only through Brahma Jnana. And he quotes a mantra, Sayohi Vaitat Param Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati iti. Where did that come from? Sayohi Vaitat Param Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. Which Upanishad? We have done it.
Kaivalya.
No. It's Mundaka Upanishad, 3rd chapter, 2nd section. 8th mantra or 9th mantra. I'm not very sure. Probably 8th or 9th. So, when doing these advanced Upanishads, we should always keep on revising the earlier ones. Otherwise, you don't grasp the beauty of it. Okay. Simply, Brahmavid Apnati Paramam. That is a Sutra Vakyam. 3 questions can arise if you're trying to analyze this particular Sutra Vakyam. 3 questions can arise. What is that? The first question is, Tat Brahma Kim? What is that Brahman? Right? The second question is, Katham Tasya Jnanam? How can I know that Brahman? If I have to know that Brahman, how can I know that Brahman? What is the method? The second question. Third one is, what is meant by Purnatvam or Purnatvam Praptihi? What is meant by Moksha Praptihi? What is meant by saying that you will get moksha? Okay, so these 3 questions have to be answered. Sutra Vakyam is Brahmavit Apnoti Param. Out of that, Kim Tad Brahma, Katham Tasya Jnanam, and what is meant by moksha? 3 questions come up and 3 questions have to be answered. And these 3 questions are answered in the Vritti portion. And the Vritti portion runs from Tadesha Bhyakta up to Brahmana Vipaschiteti. Okay, so that is the portion which is the Vritti portion. The rest of the Anuvaka is Vyakhyan. So first question was what? Kim Tat Brahma. So he says, the mantra itself says, Tadesha Bhyukta. Tad Eshaha. In this regard, the following mantra from Rig Veda is being quoted. So Tadesha Bhyukta is basically indicating that the rest of the portion, that is the Vritti portion, is a mantra from Rig Veda, starting with Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma and ending with Brahmana Vipaschiteti. Right? So the last word is split as Vipaschite iti. And the iti means that it indicates the end of the Rig mantra. Tadesha Bhyukta, Rig mantra begins, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman, Soshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha, Brahmanaha Vipaschite iti. Iti means that is the end of the Rig mantra quotation. So the Vritti portion is basically a Rig mantra quotation. Okay. And iti says that is the end of it. Here the Upanishad is defining Brahman. So the first is what? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Okay, this is Brahma Lakshana Vakyam. Now we know that there are two types of Lakshanams. What are they? All advanced students. It should be the tip of your tongue.
Tatastha Lakshanam
And
and
Swarupa Lakshanam.
Swarupa Lakshanam.
Swarupa Lakshana. What is the difference between Tatastha and Swarupa?
Swarupa is its own nature.
Mhm.
Tatastha is in relation or relevant to some other thing we describe. Like once you are
Tatastha is
given
a
the
Tatastha is a temporary description. That particular example which you are using to describe may or may not be permanent.
yes,
It's like saying that house in front of which a red car is lying is this fellow's house.
Mm.
It's Tatastha Lakshanam because the red car is not a permanent feature. It may or may not be there next time you go. But if you say house number 31 is the house, that is a Swarupa Lakshanam because that is the nature of the house. It is the particular name given to the house. So here the first definition is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. What is this? What is this Lakshanam? Is it Tathastha or is it Swarupa?
Swarupa.
Why is it Swarupa?
It's describing Brahman on its own, which is always there. Satyam Jnanam Anantam.
Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam are the very attributes. You can't really use the word attributes, but it reveals, these three words reveal Brahman alone. So a Lakshanam, a definition, can be taken as a set of words which so clearly specify the object that all other objects are excluded. If you have to see what is a definition, a definition should be words or set of words which should specify the object and which should specify so very clearly that all or any or all other objects excepting the one being specified are excluded by the words. And hence Shankara gives a very, very elaborate commentary on the first sentence. That is of the first sentence of the Vritti, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Right? Now, there is a question here. What does the mantra say? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Right? Now, if you look at it carefully, we are taking what? Brahma as Satyam Jnanam Anantam. But what is the order? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And so you can ask a question, right? A logical question. Why can you not say that Satyam is being defined and not Brahman, and Satyam is being defined as Jnanam Anantam Brahma? what can be a possible answer? It's a very logical question. There are set of words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. We are saying Brahma is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. But I can ask you, why can it not be taken that Satyam is Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma? All, squeezing your brain a bit. All unnecessary things have to be squeezed and necessary things have to be put inside. How do you explain? All right, let me give a simpler example. Supposing that there are two sentences. The king is Vikramaditya. That is one sentence. The second sentence is Vikramaditya is the king. Okay. King is Vikramaditya. Vikramaditya is the king. Now, in any sentence, there is a subject and the predicate. The subject is the knower and the predicate is that which is to be known. Subject is predicate and predicate are there. Now, in the sentence, the king is Vikramaditya. Which is the predicate? Come on, guys. Simple grammar.
Vikramaditya,
Vikramaditya.
And what is king?
the subject.
Subject.
King is subject. So in the sentence, king is Vikramaditya. King is subject. Vikramaditya is predicate. Now, in the sentence, Vikramaditya is the king. What is the order?
Reverse.
Vikramaditya becomes the subject.
And king becomes the predicate. Right? Okay. So how do you decide? If you just look at the sentence, how do you decide which is the predicate? If you look at both the sentences together, you can get confused. How will you decide which is the predicate and which is the subject? What is the deciding, factor to be considered?
Describing it, the king is Vikramaditya. So it is telling who's the king. And the other way, it is Vikramaditya. What is Vikramaditya? Vikramaditya is the king.
Right. So what is it that should look for?
The subject.
Very sorry?
The evening,
No.
the subject is Brahma.
One of my favorite
In-
words, which I keep on saying, whenever you study Shastra, you must know that. What is that? Context.
Sir, we are studying Brahman here. So the sentence will describe Brahman, which is the subject.
Which is, what is that thing called? It's called context.
Hmm.
Right. Now, in the two statements that I made, what would be the context? The context would be, what is the question being answered? If somebody was saying, who is the king? Then the answer is, the king is Vikramaditya. And if somebody is saying, who is Vikramaditya? The answer is, Vikramaditya is the king. This is exactly what Rashmiji said. Okay. But I'm putting it more, looking at the two words. So the subject, how do you decide which is subject and which is predicate? You decide at what is the context. In this case, the context is the question. The question is being answered. And here, when you look at Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, we should know that the context is what? Brahman. Why do you know context is Brahman? How do you know context is Brahman?
Because it's Bhramananda.
Bhramananda Valli.
Forget your chapter. How do you know context is Brahman?
Because the first line says Brahma Vidapnoti.
Brahmavid apnoti param. Right. So that is Brahman. And therefore, this particular line you convert. You can make it three separate sentences. Satyam Brahma, Jnanam Brahma, Anantam Brahma. And therefore, the answer is that Brahma is the common portion which is being talked about, and therefore Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam all define Brahma. Okay. Now, what is Satyam Brahma? Satyam indicates what? Tattvabodha? What is Satyam? What is the definition of Satyam? So, Tattvabodha definition?
Trikale tishtati iti sat.
Trikale tishtati. That which remains unchanged across all time frames. In other words, Satyam indicates an entity which does not at any time change its real nature, which does not deviate from its real nature. Right? And therefore, by saying Satyam Brahman, Shruti is excluding Brahman from everything which changes. What are the things which change? What is subject to change?
All anatma, whatever
All
it is
anatma
not.
is subject to change, right? Because we saw that anatma is subject to change where you have to rack your brains.
Shadvikaras, because anatma has shadvikaras, and it undergoes.
And therefore, anything which is subject to change is anatma. And therefore, by saying Satyam Brahma, Shruti says that this Brahman is an entity which does not change its nature at all at any point of time. And therefore, it's excluding Brahman from anatma. Right? Because in this Jagat, whatever you experience is a karyam, a product. And therefore, by saying Satyam Brahman, Shruti is saying that Brahman is different from karyam. Okay. What is the conclusion from the statement that Brahman is different from all karyam? Because all karyam changes. And therefore, by defining Brahman as Satyam, we are saying that Anatma is changing entity, Anatma is Mithya, and therefore by defining Brahman as Satyam, the entire Jagat has been negated as Mithya. That is the meaning of Satyam, Brahma Satyam. Okay. Then, next one is Jnanam Brahma. Okay. Once you say that Brahman creates the world, that's a very common statement used in Shastra. The Srishti comes from Brahman. Once you say that Brahman creates the world, Brahman becomes Upadana Karanam. And the moment that you say Brahman is Upadana Karanam, there will be an issue. What is the issue? Upadana Karanam has to be inert, has to be Jadam, has to be Anatma only. Right? That is one issue. If you say Brahman is the Upadana Karanam, Brahman becomes Anatma. And the second issue, if you say Brahman is Upadana Karanam, we know that Upadana Karanam undergoes change, Shadvikara. And therefore, Upadana Karanam is a Parinami Karanam, that which changes. And this change can be total or can be partial. When you say total change, you are saying that when the karyam is produced, there is a total change of the karanam, which means that the karanam no longer exists. And the example we give is curd into milk, or the other way, milk into curds. Once milk has been transformed into curds, that curd cannot perform the perform the duty of milk. You cannot add it to tea, for example, right? You cannot give it to a child. So milk into curd is total parinami karanam, while gold into necklace is a partial parinami karanam, partial change. Why? Because the gold, the material doesn't change, but the form, the name, the form changes. And therefore, gold into necklace is partial change. It's also parinami, remember. Both are parinami. Milk into curds is total parinami. Gold into necklace, there is a form change. And therefore, it is partial change. And therefore, if you say either of these, then Brahman becomes savikaram, subject to change. And savikaram means subject to shadvikara. And therefore, to show that Brahman is the upadana karanam. But you have to understand Brahman as upadana karanam, which does not undergo either a total or a partial change. See, it's a very, subtle message that is being conveyed. Brahman is upadana karanam. It is the material cause. But it's a material cause which undergoes neither total change nor partial change. And to indicate that it is the material cause which does not undergo any change at all, Shruti adds jnanam. The word jnanam. How does it convey? Now, Shankara has an extremely elaborate bhashyam on this. So, we are not going into that. But some brief points from the bhashyam. The word jnanam is derived from the dhatu jna, to know. And the jna dhatu, you add the pratyaya, the suffix anam. Okay, so jna plus anam is jnanam. The problem with this suffix, now you have to follow this very closely, okay? The problem with this suffix is that this suffix can give different meanings. And whenever there are multiple meanings to any word, there arises controversies. Okay, now each of these meanings is through a particular form of derivation. Now the derivation is called vyutpatti in Sanskrit grammar. Vyutpatti means the derivation, the etymology, how the word has been arrived at. So there are 4 derivations possible. One is the one who is the knower. Okay. So using that particular suffix, the final word which you arrive at, the first meaning is, and that's why it's called prathama vyutpatti, the first derivation, is the knower. And therefore it is called kartru vyutpatti. Kartru means the doer. In this case, the knower. Okay. So the first possibility is kartru vyutpatti, the one who is the knower. The second possibility, and that's why dvitiya vyutpatti, the second derivation, is that which is the known. First is that which is the knower, or that person who is the knower, kartru vyutpatti. Second one is that which is known, karma vyutpatti. So here we have to be careful, understand that in Sanskrit as well as in Hindi, karta is the doer, karma is that which is done, okay, the action. So that's why karma vyutpatti. It's known as dvitiya vyutpatti. First one is what? Knower. Second one is that which is known. Then there's a third derivation, which is called karana vyutpatti, which means the instrument by which one does the process of knowing. And that can be either intellect or it can be indriya, sense organs. So you have 3 definitions so far, 3 derivations so far. The knower, kartra vyutpatti, the known, karma vyutpatti, the instrument of knowledge, karana vyutpatti. Okay. Those who are familiar with even Hindi grammar or Sanskrit grammar, they will know that all these 3 are related to the cases, the vibhaktis. And therefore, karta, karma, karana. These are all related to the vibhaktis. They are called karakas, the factors of action. And therefore, all these three are called karaka vyutpatti. Okay, the factors of action, derivation from factors of action. The factor being the karma, the karana, and the karta. Okay. What about the fourth one? The fourth one is the process of knowing. What have we seen so far? Let us take the knower. Knower is karta vyutpatti. The known, karma vyutpatti. The instrument of knowledge, karana vyutpatti. What remains is the process of knowing. The process of knowing is not a karaka. It's not a factor of action. Why? Because the process of knowing comes about when these three factors come together. And therefore, these are not related to the karakas or the vibhaktis, but it is a result of their activity. When the karta, karana, and karma come together, the process of knowing is there. And that is not related to the vibhaktis at all, but it is the product of the activity of the karakas. This has got a particular name, bhava vyutpatti. Bhava means process in this case. In English, for example, if you wanted to arrive at the bhava vyutpatti of the word walk, you would add the suffix ing to it. So walking. Walking is the process which comes together when the walker comes together, when he wants to walk, and he uses his legs as the instrument. So what happens? Walking. Similarly, when the talker, he wants to talk, he uses his tongue. You get talking. So this is called bhava vyutpatti. And in the case of jnanam, what is the process of knowing? It is the thought which arises in the mind, the knowing process. And this knowing process is called vritti parinama, the result of thoughts arising in the mind. And therefore, vritti jnanam is called bhava vyutpatti of jnanam. And now Shankara says that you examine all the four and you will find that in this particular case, the bhava vyutpatti, the process of knowing is being referred to. The process means vritti jnanam, right? But vritti jnanam is what? Is it anatma or is it atma? Vritti jnanam, remember, is a thought in the mind. That knowledge which arises because of a thought in the mind is anatma. The vritti comes and goes. The vritti is anityam. It is temporary. And therefore, vritti jnanam itself is temporary. Right? So, jnanam here can mean vritti jnanam, but Shruti wants to avoid that. Shruti wants to show that it is not anatma. It should be taken as nityam, as infinite. And therefore, Shruti says anantam. Anantam is to eliminate the misunderstanding that this knowledge is limited. It arises in the mind and is limited. So, Shruti is saying that anantam is limitless knowledge. And that limitless knowledge means consciousness principle alone. So we should understand here that wherever there is vritti jnanam, if you remember our discussions on the process of knowledge, there is vritti jnanam, and behind that vritti jnanam, what is there? What is the backup? Vritti jnanam takes place where? RC or OC?
RC.
What is the backup for the RC? RC is there only because OC is there.
OC.
And therefore, Shankara says here that to understand vritti jnanam, we should drop the idea that it is a thought in the mind, drop the idea that it is RC, but take it as the OC, because of which the mind is able to function. And therefore, Jnanam here has to be taken as Swarupa Jnanam, the OC alone. Okay, with this I'll stop here for today, but this continues with a lot of explanation of the process of knowing. So, any questions so far? It's been very heavy, and I promise you it will be very heavy also for some more time. So, when you come to the next class, please revise all these portions so that we are all on the same page.
Om sir, can you spell out the word for derivation you used?
Vyutpatti. Vyutpatti.
Vyutpatti. Okay.
Vyutpatti. Okay. It seems to have been a very heavy session, but it is Taittiriya Upanishad, it is Bhramananda Valli, and it will be heavy for some more time. Wherever Shankara Bhashyam comes, a lot of intellectual gymnastics are involved. So, this will stop. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om Om.
Thank you, Anthony.